Good morning. This is Kent Blaylock with SDG Bible Study. That's the SOLI DEO GLORIA Bible Study coming to you on this Friday morning, March the 28th, 2025. So the week has flown by and the month is flying by as we're closing out the month of March. And just excited to be reading from the Everyday Gospel, a daily devotional by Paul David Tripp with reading from the biblical text and then a short devotional. This morning, we're going to be in 5 chapters in First Samuel. We'll be in First Samuel chapters 4 through 8 this morning. So join me as we read God's Word together. First Samuel chapter 4. Thus the word of Samuel came to all Israel. Now Israel went out to meet the Philistines in battle and camped beside Ebenezer, and the Philistines camped in Aphek. And the Philistines arranged themselves to meet Israel. Then the battle spread, and Israel was defeated before the Philistines, who struck down about 4,000 men on the battlefield. Then the people came into the camp, and the elders of Israel said, "Why has Yahweh defeated us today before the Philistines? Let us take to ourselves from Shiloh the ark of the covenant of Yahweh, that it may come among us and save us from the power of our enemies." So the people sent to Shiloh, and from there they carried the ark of the covenant of Yahweh of hosts, who sits above the cherubim, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were with the ark of the covenant of God. And it happened that as the ark of the covenant of Yahweh came into the camp, all Israel shouted with a great shout, so that the earth was thrown into confusion. Then the Philistines heard the noise of the shout and said, "What does the noise of this great shout in the camp of the Hebrews mean?" Then they knew that the ark of Yahweh had come into the camp, and the Philistines were afraid, for they said, "God has come into the camp." And they said, "Woe to us, for nothing like this has happened before." Woe to us, who will deliver us from the hand of these mighty gods? These are the gods who struck the Egyptians with all kinds of plagues in the wilderness. Be strong and become men, O Philistines, lest you become slaves to the Hebrews, as they have been slaves to you. Therefore become men and fight. So the Philistines fought, and Israel was defeated, and every man fled to his tent. And the slaughter was very great, for there fell of Israel 30,000 foot soldiers. And the ark of God was taken, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, died. Now a man of Benjamin ran from the battle line and came to Shiloh the same day with his robes torn and dust on his head. And he came, and behold, Eli was sitting on his seat by the road, eagerly watching, because his heart was trembling for the ark of God. Now the man came to tell it in the city, and all the city cried out. Then Eli heard the noise of the outcry, and he said, "What does the noise of this commotion mean?" So the man came hurriedly and told Eli. Now Eli was 98 years old, and his eyes had set so that he could not see. And the man said to Eli, "I am the one who came from the battle line. Indeed, I fled from the battle line today." And he said, "How did things go, my son?" Then the one who brought the news answered and said, "Israel has fled before the Philistines, and there has also been a great slaughter among the people. And your two sons also, Hophni and Phinehas, are dead, and the ark of God has been taken." And it happened that when he mentioned the ark of God, Eli fell off the seat backwards beside the gate, and his neck was broken, and he died, for the man was old and heavy. Thus he judged Israel 40 years. Now his daughter-in-law, Phinehas' wife, was with child and about to give birth, and she heard the report that the ark of God was taken, and that her father-in-law and her husband had died. So she kneeled down and gave birth, for her pains came upon her. And about the time of her death, the women who stood by her said to her, "Do not be afraid, for you have given birth to a son." But she did not answer or pay attention. And she called the boy Ichabod, saying, "The glory has departed from Israel, because the ark of God was taken, and because of her father-in-law and her husband." And she said, "The glory has departed from Israel, for the ark of God was taken." Now to chapter 5. Now the Philistines took the ark of God and brought it from Ebenezer to Ashdod. Then the Philistines took the ark of God and brought it to the house of Dagon and set it by Dagon. Then the Ashdodites arose early the next morning, and behold, Dagon had fallen on his face to the ground before the ark of Yahweh. So they took Dagon and set him in his place again. But they arose early the next morning, and behold, Dagon had fallen on his face to the ground before the ark of Yahweh. And the head of Dagon and both the palms of his hands were cut off on the threshold. Only the trunk of Dagon was left to him. Therefore, neither the priests of Dagon nor all who entered Dagon's house tread on the threshold of Dagon in Ashdod to this day. Now the hand of Yahweh was glorious against the Ashdodites, and he made them desolate and struck them with tumors, both Ashdod and its territories. Thus the men of Ashdod saw that it was so, and said, The ark of God of Israel must not remain with us, for his hand is severe on us and on Dagon our God. So they sent and gathered all the lords of the Philistines to them. What shall we do with the ark of the God of Israel? And they said, Let the ark of the God of Israel be brought around to Gath. And they brought the ark of God, and they brought the ark of the God of Israel around. Now it happened after they had brought it around that the hand of Yahweh was against the city with a very great confusion. And he struck the men of the city, both young and old, so that tumors broke out on them. So they sent the ark of God to Ekron. And as the ark of God came to Ekron, the Ekronites cried out, saying, They have brought the ark of the God of Israel around to us to put us and our people to death. They sent therefore and gathered all the lords of the Philistines and said, Send away the ark of God, the God of Israel, and let it return to its own place, so that they will not put us and our people to death. For there was a deadly confusion throughout the city. The hand of God was very glorious there. Now the men who did not die were struck with tumors, and the cry of the city went up to heaven. Now to chapter 6. Now the ark of Yahweh had been in the fields of the Philistines 7 months. And the Philistines called for the priest and the diviners, saying, What shall we do with the ark of Yahweh? Make us know how we shall send it to its place. So they said, If you send the ark of the God of Israel, do not send it empty, but you shall surely return him a guilt offering. Then you will be healed, and it will be known to you why his hand is not turned away from you. Then they said, What shall be the guilt offering which we shall return to him? And they said, 5 golden tumors and 5 golden mice, according to the number of the lords of the Philistines. For one plague was on all of you and on your lords. So you shall make likenesses of your tumors and likenesses of your mice that bring the land to ruin. And you shall give glory to the God of Israel. Perhaps he will ease his hand from you, your gods, and your land. Why then do you harden your hearts as the Egyptians and Pharaoh hardened their hearts when he had abused them? Did they not allow the people to go, and they went? So now take and make a new cart and 2 milch cows, on which there has never been a yoke, and hitch the cows to the cart, and take their calves home away from them. And take the ark of Yahweh and place it on the cart, and put the articles of gold which you return to him as a guilt offering in a box by its side. Then send it away, that it may go. See, if it goes up by the way of its own territory to Beth-Shemesh, then he has done us this great evil. But if not, then we will know that it was not his hand that smote us. It happened to us by chance. Then the men did so, and took 2 milch cows, and hitched them to the cart, and shut up their calves at home. And they put the ark of Yahweh on the cart, as well as the box with the golden mice and the likenesses of their tumors. And the cows took the straight way in the direction of Beth-Shemesh. They went along the highway, lowing as they went, and did not turn aside to the right or to the left. And the lords of the Philistines went after them to the border of Beth-Shemesh. Now the people of Beth-Shemesh were reaping their wheat harvest in the valley, and they raised their eyes and saw the ark, and were glad to see it. The cart came into the field of Joshua the Beth-Shemite, and stood there, and a large stone was there, and they split the wood of the cart, and offered the cows as a burnt offering to Yahweh. And the Levites took down the ark of Yahweh and the box that was in it, in which were the articles of gold, and put them on the large stone. And the men of Beth Shemesh offered burnt offerings and sacrifices that day to Yahweh. So the 5 lords of the Philistines saw it and returned to Ekron that day. Now these are the golden tumors which the Philistines returned for a guilt offering to Yahweh, one for Ashdod, one for Gaza, one for Ashkelon, one for Gath, one for Ekron. And the golden mice, according to the number of all the cities of the Philistines, belonging to the 5 lords, both of the fortified cities and of country villages. The large stone on which they set the ark of Yahweh is a witness to this day in the field of Joshua the Beth Shemite. Then he struck down some of the men of Beth Shemesh because they had looked into the ark of Yahweh. He struck down of all the people 50,070 men. And the people mourned because Yahweh had struck the people with a great slaughter. And the men of Beth Shemesh said, "Who is able to stand before Yahweh, this holy God? And to whom shall he go up from us?" So they sent messengers to the inhabitants of Kiriath Jearim, saying, "The Philistines have brought back the ark of Yahweh. Come down and take it up to you." Now to chapter 7. And the men of Kiriath Jearim came and brought the ark of Yahweh up and brought it into the house of Abinadab on the hill, and set apart Eleazar his son as holy, in order to keep the ark of Yahweh. Now it happened from the day when the ark remained at Kiriath Jearim that the time was long, it was 20 years, and all of the house of Israel lamented after Yahweh. Then Samuel spoke to all the house of Israel, saying, "If you are to return to Yahweh with all your heart, then remove the foreign gods and the Ashtaroth from among you, and set your hearts toward Yahweh, and serve him alone, and he will deliver you from the hand of the Philistines." So the sons of Israel removed the Baals and the Ashtaroth, and served Yahweh alone. Then Samuel said, "Gather all Israel to Mizpah, and I will pray to Yahweh for you." And they gathered to Mizpah, and drew water, and poured it out before Yahweh, and fasted on that day, and said there, "We have sinned against Yahweh." And Samuel judged the sons of Israel at Mizpah. Then the Philistines heard that the sons of Israel had gathered to Mizpah, and the lords of the Philistines went up against Israel. Then the sons of Israel heard it, and were afraid of the Philistines. So the sons of Israel said to Samuel, "Do not cease to cry out to Yahweh our God for us, that he may save us from the hand of the Philistines." And Samuel took a suckling lamb and offered it for a whole burnt offering to Yahweh. And Samuel cried out to Yahweh for Israel, and Yahweh answered him. Now Samuel was offering up the burnt offering, and the Philistines drew near to battle against Israel. But Yahweh thundered with a great thunder on that day against the Philistines, and confused them, so that they were defeated before Israel. So the men of Israel went out of Mizpah and pursued the Philistines, and struck them down as far as Beth-kar. Then Samuel took a stone and set it between Mizpah and Shin, and he named it Ebenezer. And he said, "Thus far Yahweh has helped us." So the Philistines were subdued, and they did not come any more within the border of Israel. And the hand of Yahweh was against the Philistines all the days of Samuel. And the cities which the Philistines had taken from Israel were restored to Israel, from Ekron even to Gath, and Israel delivered their territory from the hand of the Philistines. So there was peace between Israel and the Amorites. Then Samuel judged Israel all the days of his life. And he used to go annually on circuit to Bethel and Gilgal and Mizpah, and he judged Israel in all these places. But his return would be to Ramah, for his house was there, and there he judged Israel, and he built there an altar to Yahweh. Now to chapter 8. And it happened when Samuel was old that he appointed his sons judges over Israel. The name of his firstborn was Joel, and the name of his second Abijah. They were judging in Beersheba. But his sons did not walk in his ways, but turned aside after greedy gain, and took bribes, and caused justice to turn aside. Then all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah. And they said to him, Behold, you have grown old, and your sons do not walk in your ways. Now appoint a king for us to judge us like all the nations. But this thing was evil in the sight of Samuel when they said, Give us a king to judge us. And Samuel prayed to Yahweh. Then Yahweh said to Samuel, Listen to the voice of the people in regard to all that they say to you. For they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me from being king over them. Like all the deeds which they have done since the day that I brought them up from Egypt, even to this day, and that they have forsaken me and served other gods, so they are doing to you also. So now, listen to their voice. However, you shall solemnly testify them and tell them of the custom of the king who will reign over them. So Samuel spoke all the words of Yahweh to the people who had asked of him a king. And he said, This will be the custom of the king who will reign over you. He will take your sons and appoint them for himself in his chariots and among his horsemen, and they will run before his chariots. And he will appoint for himself commanders of thousands and of fifties, and some to do his plowing and to reap his harvest, and to make his weapons of war and equipment for his chariots. He will also take your daughters for perfumers and cooks and bakers. He will take the best of your fields and your vineyards and your olive groves and give them to his servants. He will take a tenth of your seed and of your vineyards and give it to his officers and to his servants. He will also make your male slaves and your female slaves and your best young men and your donkeys and use them for his work. He will also take a tenth of your flocks, and you yourselves will become his slaves. Then you will cry out in that day because of your king, whom you have chosen for yourselves. But Yahweh will not answer you in that day. Nevertheless, the people refused to listen to the voice of Samuel, and they said, No, but there shall be a king over us, that we also may be like all the nations, that our king may judge us and go out before us and fight our battles. So Samuel heard all the words of the people, and he repeated them in the hearing of Yahweh. Then Yahweh said to Samuel, Listen to their voice and appoint them a king. So Samuel said to the men of Israel, Go every man to his city. And that's going to conclude our reading from the biblical text this morning. Now for the devotional reading. Always remember that the Lord Almighty reigns in glory, and he will not give his glory to another. I love good comedy. I love comedic moments that are unsettling and awkward, because in those moments, the messiness of the personalities, intentions, and responses of human beings are being unclothed. There are moments in great comedies when I feel the awkwardness and think, this guy is naked, metaphorically. Everyone in the room knows it except him. You laugh as you cringe. You feel sorry for the guy, but you also think that he has been exposed. Comedy can break through our defenses, allowing us to examine and admit things that a lecture about the same things wouldn't allow. God gave us the ability to laugh. Humor is one of the good gifts, but even this gift is meant to point to God's existence and his glory. There is a divine comedy in the Bible. If you don't see it, then you have probably missed the power of the narrative that God has preserved for you. 1 Samuel 5 contains one of these moments. And I don't know what is going on this morning. It is holy hilarity at its best. The Philistines have captured the Ark of the Covenant, and because they are convinced that their God, Dagon, is more powerful than Jehovah, the Lord Almighty, the creator and controller of everything that is. Now let yourself step into the cosmic ridiculousness Now let yourself step into the cosmic ridiculousness of this. Could this God of stone, which at some point was crafted by human hands, ever be compared to the Lord of Lords, let alone be greater than him? Watch what happens next. It should make you chuckle with awe. And when the people of Ashdod rose early the next day, behold, Dagon had fallen face downward on the ground before the ark of the Lord. So they took Dagon and put him back in his place. But when they rose early on the next morning, behold, Dagon had fallen face downward on the ground before the ark of the Lord. And the head of Dagon and both his hands were lying cut off on the threshold. Oh, I'm so sorry for this morning. I have no idea what this is. Let me go back and read that. But when they rose early on the next morning, behold, Dagon had fallen face downward on the ground before the ark of the Lord. And the head of Dagon and both his hands were lying cut off on the threshold. Only the trunk of Dagon was left to him. 1 Samuel chapter 5, verses 3 and 4. How awkward. Great conquering Dagon now lies face flat before the ark of the Lord, as though in a worshipful surrender. Chapter 5, verse 3. God will not give his glory to another. The scene should make you chuckle at the complete impotency of this idol in the face of the glory of the Lord. But the divine comedy of this moment isn't over. The Philistines in a vain effort to hold on to the delusion of Dagon's power, prop him up again, only to find him toppled again, this time with his head cut off, head and hands cut off. His powerlessness now rendered even more powerless. When I read this, I hear the heavenly host laughing. It's the laughter of praise. God won't give his glory to another. Psalms chapter 2, verse 4 tells us, he who sits in the heavens laughs. There are moments when it is spiritually good for us to laugh, too, as we consider the ridiculous impotency of anything that would challenge the will and glory of our great and glorious Lord. And that's going to conclude our reading this morning. And I apologize so much for whatever is causing this sticky key problem this morning. But we give God the glory for it in all things. Just a little observation this morning with, of course, this situation with Dagon is humorous, but also I found it interesting when the Philistines are sending the ark back, and they take the two milch cows, as they say, and they return them. They take the two cows and they take their calves from them and put the two calves in the barn, and they hitch the cows who have never been hitched before and send them away. And it says they're lowing as they go. You see, the two cows would by no means have left their calves to themselves. That's why the Philistines did this. Their thinking is these two cows are not going to leave their calves, but God's hand was on them, and they went straightway to Beth Shemesh. It's just showing God's hand into things. God is sovereign even in those moments. And I apologize for this constant beeping, so I'm going to cut this short now. Well, not short, we're done, but I apologize for the interruptions this morning. Have a blessed day. Soli Deo Gloria.